of Goblin Hut now. I think the biggest thing right there is maybe his cycle was a little bit off. You know, he needed those other cards just in case, more so defensively. The Goblin Hut, it just kind of takes up the map, right? Like, your opponent...
On top of that, Ewiz.
Yeah. It's like Anton in the chat here saying Valkyrie selling and Evo Valk selling. And yeah, that's exactly it. It's tough when those Evos, you know, they have great interactions, and we were saying yesterday, Evo Valk, wow, and that is tough, man. Oh, boy. Just behind on the barrel. Magic Archer's at the bridge, does get on top of the bar barrel, so, but it should get a lineup here still on the Valk. Absolutely devastating. That's game right there. Sub knows it.
Yeah, that's absolutely rough, and I know a lot of that began with the Evo Snowball, taking everything and putting it back behind that Princess Tower on the right-hand side and clearing out a path. One of those many things where, you know, a snowball in the past might have just knocked it to the side. Now able to clear the way for that Mega Knight to connect, and then you get the Magic Archer, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah, I mean, Drill was just so strong yesterday, and this is a version of Drill that we kind of saw in the past as Golden Knight has worked its way back into the meta. It's interesting because, you know, Tornado is so much weaker now than it used to be. It's really just about lining things up and moving things around the board now, right? That's what it was really always about, but the extra added damage to take care of the bats or the spears or the skellies, what have you, was the added bonus that made it a super, super strong card. We've only seen NATO used a few times this whole weekend. It's not really used in the most popular Graveyard deck, even though we did see some Splash Yard yesterday. But this was just a great use of all of it, right? Mega Knight was such a nuisance that whole game for subs. So, you know, all of you guys at mid-ladder, don't worry. Even at the highest level, Mega Knight is still absolutely a nuisance. And, you know, just a couple of weird interactions there. It's the first game of the day, so maybe sub can clean some of that up. But that Mega Knight caused way more issues than it should have throughout that game.
Well, sub now with Graveyard out, and as we were talking about earlier, Graveyard so popular in the late half of the game, or the matches yesterday. Poison gone as well. When you're looking kind of what sub has left, he had some success yesterday with the Royal Giant, some success yesterday with Bridge Spam, and I'm wondering if either one of those are on the docket for game number 2.
Yeah, I know. That was another thing that we were talking about yesterday, was just like, picking what people are going to run after one game now has become so much more difficult than it used to be. The meta is so expansive, and then also, like, now people are just going for, instead of, like, putting in a win condition because a spell is out, they're just going to put in a strong Evo, and Mo did that great yesterday. Just something as simple as Archers being out game 1, or excuse me, Arrows being out game 1, and then running Evo Archers in game number 2, and those Evo Archers were impossible to deal with. So it's become this fascinating thing of, obviously you want your win condition to benefit based off what your opponent doesn't have anymore, but the other part of it is sometimes Evos and champions are enough to win the game. How do you exploit that as well?
Well, both guys taking their time to get ready for game number 2. Both guys, of course, world finalists in their own right. You know, when you talk about the road these two players have gotten to this point, sub, we were mentioning earlier, this journeyman who's been right there on the edge for a long time, maybe always a bridesmaid, never a bride out of the Brazilian contingent. Ta, to me, is such a fascinating character, though, because you and I both remember his debut in CRL back in 2021, and we've made this mea culpa before, but we were both surprised, very shocked by the run he made in that monthly final the first time he showed up on camera, and we were kind of saying, hey, we don't expect to see this guy back again. He felt like we've seen so many times over and over again, a flash in the pan, a good luck story in those moments, and then over time continued to get better and better until he was a legitimate threat last year.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a grinder now, man. Like, it just seems like he is always in these monthly finals. He just keeps showing up over and over and over. And again, like I said, I think at World Finals, I don't know what exactly went on that day number 1 for him, but I definitely seem to put a fire under his butt, because he seems to be back. He seems to be, again, doing what he does best, which is being very versatile and just having really great interactions. He's got a great macro understanding of the game, and he doesn't make micro mistakes.
So looking at the decks from game number 1, the Drill and a full-on bridge spam set for Ta. Yeah. Magic Archer gone, Royal Ghost gone, Ewiz gone. The Golden Knight, which we saw come in really handy on that defense against the Graveyard. but only NATO and Snowball. So spells open all across the board for Ta, whereas Sub, pretty traditional with the Graveyard play, Barb Barrel, and Poison both out. Let's take a look at what they have in store for us in game number 2 as we're playing Small Ball to start things off. And a very different tenor.
Order deck. Yeah, absolutely. Just going. Looks like we're seeing maybe some minor control versus some mortar here. And we'll have to see what spell Ta's running. We saw some with Poison yesterday. We saw more with Rocket. And then Sub, I'm curious to just see what iteration of, if it is Mortar, which probably is with the, there it is, which iteration we actually end up seeing, because the most popular one yesterday, this version, if it's got Skeleton King, just wasn't very good. But you know what? That doesn't mean it's not a good deck. It just maybe wasn't finding the right spot in the competition yesterday.
And you see that high Goblin Hut interaction with the Mortar, shutting it down completely, first minute away, and so far just a little bit of chip damage on both sides.
Yeah, the Goblin Hut has become just so fascinating. It's like the way you play it is just so different than any way you've played a building before and any way you've played the Goblin Hut before, but as you see right there, just a nice, easy way to counter the Mortar.
And you're also seeing just early, varied placement with the Miner out of Sub, knows the NATO's gone, go ahead, put it wherever you like. And with that, he's gotten things pretty close, although it is Ta with dual lane damage so far compared to Sub, who's been just on the right-hand side. Minute 22 remaining in regulation time.
And those Evo Bats being targeted by that Demolisher is just something that Sub's going to have to keep in his back pocket for most of this game, depending on what big spell he has. Usually, though, it's usually just... Actually, he might have a way to take care of the Evo Bats otherwise, but being able to do it with a Demolisher is probably going to be his best bet.
And Hut picks up the spears at the top into double elixir time. Demolisher high. Golden Knight set up in the back. A little poison chip for Ta. And pressure on the right-hand side.
Yep, one of the worst things about playing Cannoneer, one of the best things about playing against it is just the ability to create pressure with 1 and 2 elixir cards like Skellies and Bats.
Poison value now for Ta, as the Miner goes at the back and opens up a lead finally for Sub down to 22-17 on the left-hand side. And Demolisher clearing a path. Bats for Bats. Golden Knight not going to activate here.
Yeah, and that was a really nice pre-poison there from Ta, just taking care of everything there. Evo Bats get taken off the board instantaneously. Definitely a bummer there for Sub. Evo Bats just one of my favorite Evos in the game. Because when you don't have a response, as we saw yesterday, they can just really steal something. Mohamed Light showed Vitor that in a fun mirror match of wall breakers with Evo Bats.
And Gang has to come out just to pick up those juiced Bats as the Miner gets up front. Mortar will be picked up by the mighty Miner.
As more time goes on, it feels like it's probably Lightning. That's what I was saying earlier, is like, you know, he probably didn't have a great spell to deal with it, but sometimes you see this run with arrows because you can kind of couple the arrows with the Demolisher to actually create kind of a big spell as one mortar shot comes in on that left-hand side. So Sub doing a good job of just being really annoying with the mortars, which is a lot of what you need to do with this deck.
Here we go. Final 70 seconds of gameplay approaching. Triple Elixir about to kick in.
Yeah, and for Triple Elixir, I mean, this is really where I think, both these guys are in a good spot because they have a 3-card cycle along with a Miner, but I think Sub needs to just keep up a little bit of pressure to make sure his opponent can't just go full offense. Wow,
oh,
and he actually gets the mortar lock, Rich. I think that's going to be the game right there.
2 shots off of the mortar in the final 50 seconds, 831 to over 2,000 on both lanes. And it would take a pretty big mistake, it feels like, out of Sub to give up that quantity of damage in this time frame.
Yep, and there's the Lightning that we've been kind of waiting on this whole game. Obviously, as we saw the game kind of develop, we knew it wasn't going to be arrows. Holds on to the Lightning the whole time. Nice little final send here from Ta. I mean, this is one of the rough things about playing Cannoneer, which is why it's been coupled with the Demolisher so much, is you all of a sudden have a great way to just take care of everything piling up at the bridge. All those swarm units cleaned up by one Demolisher blowing up. And finally, we see this Mortar deck actually pick up a win pretty emphatically.
Lightning to kick things off, or to set things off. And, you know, we see, you talk about it picking up a pretty significant win for this deck, but it all really comes down to that mortar escaping. Those 2 mortar shots, we're already starting to see the shift going towards sub, and then when you create that big of a gap in triple elixir, now you're just putting all this pressure where it could have been, hey, pick your spot, create some opportunities in both lanes, and kind of force Ta to go in one big direction. And to his credit, and to the, as you mentioned, the detriment of Cannoneer, he did close the gap significantly. But man, and you can't give up 2 mortar shots at that stage in the game.
The biggest thing for Ta that I think Sub started to recognize as the game went on was just there was not a lot of ground tanks to deal with the mortar, right? And that's something that happens when you have Mighty Miner in your deck as the only tank. Is obviously you want to keep it on the board for the 3-card cycle, but then you don't have another tank to get on the ground anywhere else. And as that game kind of went on, the tough thing is if you're Ta, you can't keep playing the Goblin Head in the center of the map because it will tank for the mortar, but it doesn't actually provide any utility. So then you start playing the Goblin Hut up high on top of the mortar, and then Sub did a great job of recognizing that and then getting the Demolisher down in front of it. So as the game went on, they were playing this great game of chess where Sub was able to create a ton of pressure with the mortar and then also get the 3-card cycle going with his Golden Knight, but then his opponent and Ta just didn't have enough ground tanks. There's no way to keep that Mighty Miner where you need it at all times when your opponent has a siege unit that is just always on the board.
Well, looking at what they did in game number 1 and game number 2, just a little appraisal for everybody watching at home. For Sub, game number 1, Poison and Barb Barrel out as part of the Graveyard deck. Now adds Lightning alongside the Mortar Miner deck. Evo's used Bats, Mortar, Archers, and the Valkyrie. On the other side of things, Ta, Mega Knight, and Snowball, the 2 Evos, gone alongside the NATO with that Bridge Spam Drill deck. And then here, Miner Poison, Mighty Miner gone, the Ice Spirit, and the Evo Bats. And, I'll defer to you here, Andrew. I know there's no way to call decks at this point, but as we were talking about, it feels like even you mentioned that it's hard to figure out what to do in game number 2. I'm still looking at this board in game number 3 and finding myself going, well, I can think of 24 options at this stage.
I mean, totally. That's exactly it. And I'm sitting here kind of trying to look through and see, it's so hard because Sub now with running Graveyard in game 1, and you look at what was running game number 2 from Ta, it's like, oh, okay, well, now Spears are out, Poison's out, Logs out, Bats are out. There's a lot of great ways to get on top of to punish him with Graveyard. Oh, we don't have Graveyard anymore, so what are things that are like that? You're like, oh, well, Skeleton King. Well, he's only paired with Mortar. We can't play Mortar anymore. So it just becomes this thing of, like, I honestly wouldn't mind. Yesterday, we did not see, like, any Piggies. I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of Piggies deck from Ta, just knowing that Lightning's out of play. Lightning and Poison are both out. I think with Lightning and Poison both out for Sub, it also would be a really good idea for Ta to just go with Graveyard. I think it would be great for him to go Witch Graveyard with Evo Knight, I think that deck, will have Goblin Hut in it sometimes, but it doesn't have to have Goblin Hut in it. I think that's one of the things that you can actually change when you're looking at Lightning and Poison being out. The biggest threats in those decks